There we go. All right. Well, hello everyone. Thank you all for attending our Women in Tech panel. So we're just going to briefly introduce everyone and then we'll start the panel. So um, let me introduce myself first though. So my name is Juan Velasquez and we have over here,
Gerardo Guion.
mhm, and we're going to be like I guess the moderators or just the people who organize this panel. Um, So let's go over like the panelists for today's workshop. So we'll be having Belinda Alvarado, Ellie Popoca, Catherine Grace Treviño, Stephany Lopez, and Catalina Diaz. And we'll cover a little brief introduction about each of them. Um, so a little bit about Belinda Alvarado is that she's a recent graduate from UTRGV, and she's been employed by SHIP, or also known as the Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers, as a tutor for data structures, and has done several um, um, items to expand her skill set, and she's currently taking a PM certification course. Um, and she's uh, very into reading, listening to podcasts, audiobooks, catching up on TV. And she describes that she's been listening to I Survived Capitalism and all I got was this lousy t-shirt, which is very interesting. And she was also the last president for co-president for Frontera.
All right, my bad. We can introduce like the guests themselves and then we'll like start. So if Ellie, you'd like to introduce yourself.
Oh yeah, for sure. So hi everyone. Yeah, my name is Ellie. I'm a senior. I'm studying information sciences at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. So yeah, I'm very much involved in like the education technology space. I'm currently a curriculum developer for a Learn to Code online platform called Codidex. So yeah, I've made courses, a bunch of content for them. I've also been on the Bobo Talks podcast for them. So it's been really great. I'm still with them now. And yeah, I've also met a lot of the some of the panelists and also the organizers of this event through Frontera Hacks. So yeah, very excited to be here today. Thank you.
Next, we'll have Catherine introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Catherine Grace Treviño. I graduated from UTRGV December of 2020 with a degree in computer engineering. And since then, I've been working at IBM. I'm currently a technical brand specialist at IBM, and I provide technical consultations for financial services markets, such as big banks and insurances, specifically for their mainframes, which are those huge computers in data centers that you see in the movies. I am a SHIP lifetime member, and I'm actually the SHIP IPC manager for IBM. So I help with that strategic partnership. And I like to promote diversity in STEM through my work. I've held various different roles within the Hispanic Executive Council at IBM. I've also been recognized for my diversity in STEM and mentorship on SHIP, Share, and Business Insider, and I'm really excited to be here with you all today.
And then next, we will have Catalina Diaz introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Catalina Diaz. I'm also, I didn't put it on here, but I'm also, I graduated from UTRGV 2 years ago, I want to say, with a bachelor's of computer science. Right now, I'm employed at Zoom, and I work as a developer advocate with the marketplace operations team. But I do bounce around the marketplace team and the security team, which means my focus lies on APIs, integrations, and also API monitoring, just to make sure that there's no bad actors on our API or people doing the wrong things while using, the Zoom environment type of thing. Since I am a developer advocate, I am an advocate for tech and all of the tools out there. So I really wanted to join this panel just to share what I do on a daily basis, I guess.
Okay, and finally we have Stephany Lopez.
Hi, my name is Stephany. Some people call me Steph. You can call me that too if you want to. I started Frontera Devs in 2019. I think my goal when I was a student on campus was just to get some community that was not necessarily like a different organization. Like before, this was Google Developer Student Clubs, and I wanted it to have a lot of representation from the border and the valley. And so the birth of Frontera Devs started. And since then, I've worked at a bunch of different companies. I was at GitHub, I was at Apple, I was at Adobe. And now I'm doing head of product, so product management at a tiny stealth healthcare startup that helps families get paid for taking care of their kids. So super, super excited to be here and super honored to be with the fellow panelists here today.
Awesome. Thank you everyone for introducing themselves. We're excited to have you all here. We'll start off with like a general question first, and then we'll go one by one. But the first question is, what inspired you to choose your career path, and what advice would you give to someone starting that career? Let's start off with Belinda first.
Okay, so I'm currently in between jobs, I guess, but not really. I work as a tutor for algorithms and data structures, and that is the job that I held while I was attending university. So I've continued to hold it, but right now I'm currently job searching since I just graduated in December, and I have many promising interviews lined up, so I'm looking forward to that. And yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Awesome. Ellie, get your response.
Yes, sorry, could you repeat that question?
Yeah, so what inspired you to choose your career path, and what advice would you give to someone starting that path?
Yeah, so I think what inspired me a lot was I was throughout high school. So I went to high school in the suburbs of Chicago. So I got to see a lot about like what people were doing like in the city in terms of like tech and stuff, because I sort of grew up around it. I joined robotics throughout high school. I did it all 4 years. I was involved with like the programming side of it. I think that's what really started it. And then in college, I wanted to end up doing, programming, but also not just that, but, a lot of the fun, cool, creative things that come along with it. So like creative coding, and also what other things I could do with it. So, like linguistics and education. So it sort of started a little bit like more engineering, and it's sort of gotten into the other different things that I do. And then, yeah, advice to someone, just like overall general, I think is, opportunities are definitely, finding opportunities, getting involved, I think is one of the biggest things. I did so many things to get involved throughout at the beginning of college and high school. I joined a bunch of like STEM nonprofits. I was trying to put myself out there as much as I could. I did Google's Computer Science Summer Institute program. And then from there on, more opportunities came to get internships, stuff like that. So especially right now with what's currently, like the tech industry right now is a little bit fumbling. So I think, yeah, overall general advice is to just, be involved with different things.
Awesome. Thank you. Catherine, can we get your opinion?
So I did do a little bit of a pivot in my career. And so I did start off as a developer And I really loved it. I loved I was doing hardware development. So I did a lot of monitors and drivers to verify the hardware that would be on the mainframe. And it was a really great time. And I think what inspired me in my childhood was similar to Ellie, was like doing robotics, and we kind of like grew up with technology. So trying to be a part of that innovation was really important to me. But I am a first generation engineer. I'm sure like a lot of people that I meet in the Valley are the same, or first generation corporate. So I didn't really know what I wanted to do, and I really liked computer architecture at UTRGV. So I kind of like dove into that first. And then what inspired me to make the pivot that I'm in right now, which is an incredibly client-facing role, was actually talking to Hispanic executives within my company. So I think, just like Ellie said, being involved is so incredibly crucial, because I wouldn't have known that this job existed, and it happens to be probably like I'm going to be here for the next 30 years, maybe, who knows. But I as of right now, I'm absolutely in love with this role, because I saw them traveling on LinkedIn, and I saw them having a flexible schedule, and I saw that they weren't in the office. And I was like, oh my gosh, that is exactly who I want to be when I grow up. And so I decided to take the leap and message them and then ask for 15 minutes on their calendar to see how I could get a job similar to that. Because I love traveling. And so now I get to travel 4 times a month, and it's been such a really great journey. So I think the two different things inspired me, of course, the robotics and as I grew up, but I think what really inspired me was my community within my company to help me move into this pivot. And my advice would be getting involved and also just saying yes to opportunities. There's some times where I get an opportunity and I'm like, oh, but I'm so tired. I don't want to like I actually just went to Chicago last year, and I have a whole story about that, but I was like, I don't want to fly to Chicago. I just came back from another trip and I don't want to do it. And I was like, you know what? Dr. Lozano from UTRGV is actually the one that told me that this piece of advice. She told me just say yes to opportunities. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to say yes. And that event kind of created a whole conversation within my company, for me to get a promotion. So I'm like, imagine if I didn't go, that wouldn't have happened. So you say yes to opportunities.
That's awesome. We'll pass it on to Stephany.
I initially chose the path of, software engineering. And when I was doing internships, I think like lesson number one is for all of you who are students right now, please, 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 if you don't know what internships are, please look them up. They are really the most important thing that you can do for your career. I would argue even more important than your degree. But they're the most important thing that you can do for yourself, because it's really the opportunity to see what working in that particular role will look like. So if you're interested in being a software engineer, you might be interested in looking at software engineering internships at different companies. It's not always going to be a copy and paste type situation. So a software engineer at Google might be very different than a software engineer at Netflix. They're just extremely different experiences. And I think the biggest thing you want to give to yourself is just the opportunity of flexibility and just the opportunity of options, because I think very rarely do people have options. They usually kind of take what they can get and don't usually look around for different things. And there's so much of the tech industry, that you can explore. There's software engineering, but then there's like Catherine mentioned, there's hardware engineering, and then there's DevRel, like Cat, and then there's product. There's just so many really interesting things at so many cool companies. So I think the biggest takeaway is like find an internship anywhere. And usually the first one you get is like something you're desperate for, which is an experience that everyone gets, but find it. Find it and go experience like what the real world is like and what it would be like to be in that position. I think once you do that, the whole second part of like your phase or introduction to tech or just like your career starts from there. The path to my career in product really stemmed from starting an internship in software engineering and just constantly getting distracted. So it's like, oh, I really like engineering, but I also like design. And as long as I finish my work in engineering, I could do design too. And then I did design, and then I was like, oh, I really like this other thing called like data science. And then I did data science. And then I just kept doing that again and again and again and again and again. And I was like, I really like everything, but I don't want to commit to one. So like, what's the job that can get me there? And then I learned about what product management is, which is just really deciding what it is the engineers build and why, and like what is the purpose of that. And to me, that was extremely interesting because it's a blend of a bunch of different things. It's a blend of business, but also a blend of design, but also a blend of engineering. And you kind of get to sit at this intersection of deciding what it is that you're going to build and just having a lot of influence in every single respect. So that's how I kind of stumbled amongst product. And then ever since then, I just really fell in love with it. It's really, really fulfilling to decide what it is that you're going to build and to have a really deep relationship with the people who are going to use it. So like, for example, if I'm like a PM at Uber, I would want to see like, what is it like to be an Uber, you know? So I'll try like driving people around for a couple of weeks and then think like, oh my God, this part of the app sucks as like a driver, or like, oh my God, like being a rider in an Uber sucks. This is what I would do differently. And being a PM and doing product is just figuring out how do you find the right problems to solve and how do you solve them in a way that is impactful? And I think that is a super enriching experience. And so I think anyone who's interested in product, the biggest tip I can give you is to just kind of be okay with the fact that you'll be like a master of none and a generalist, and that's an extremely powerful skill to have.
Thank you, thank you. Lastly, Catalina.
Yes, I guess my story sounds very similar to the rest. I did want to start with software engineering and like developing and all that stuff because that's what I really wanted. But Stephany actually was the one who introduced me to developer relations, and developer advocacy, which I mean, I guess just to give you like a super easy explanation on that, like a developer relation or developer advocate role, it just acts as a bridge between the developer community and the company's products and technologies type of thing. So I ended up trying it out, even though I had no idea what the role was at all. I just got the interview and I got the job, and I was like, I guess this is what I'm going to be doing this summer. It was like my first internship as well. Well, my first like big company tech internship, and I ended up really liking it. I really liked how much like versatility there was, and honestly, like you just got to pick up a lot of different projects randomly. I worked at PagerDuty, if y'all are curious about that, but I remember there would be like a lot of things that I wasn't happy with, or a lot of questions that I had, and I would ask these questions, and my manager would just tell me, well, like, I don't know the answer. How about like you investigate that, and maybe you can make a project out of that. So I really liked how open it was to different things, as well as like how much I got to communicate with developers and how they experienced our platform. And I just really enjoyed doing that because I wasn't coding, but I was still interacting with the code, if that makes any sense. And I was explaining how they're using it wrong and how to use it right? Because they were sometimes developers, I mean, they're not perfect, right? They use the code wrong, or they're not using it to the most efficient way possible. And I'm there to help them fix the problem or whatever they need, right? And now working at Zoom, I am still doing developer advocacy, but something that I guess I was missing was that tech part, that more technical part, which is coding and stuff like that. And I guess this is my next piece of advice that kind of combines with what I did, which is don't be afraid to ask for an opportunity. Like, yes, opportunities come and go, but also sometimes they don't come and you have to make that for yourself. So you have to, I remember on one of my one-on-ones, I had to ask my manager, I was like, hey, like, I like my role and all, but I kind of want to see more code, or I want more of a challenge that is more technical. Like I feel like I understand how to communicate effectively with the developers as well as like PMs and our team and stuff. I just need something more technical which I was immediately moved to the security team to do API monitoring and all this other stuff, which was super new to me. I had to do like 2-3 weeks of training or of like how to do all that stuff and getting access to all these different things in the company, which was super fun. And I feel like I would have never had that opportunity if I never asked for it. And also, even though I was like, I have no idea what that is, I still took it, you know? So don't be afraid to take opportunities, even though, like, for example, let's say you're like, man, that sounds hard and I don't know what that is. Like, don't be afraid, like, just take it. And also, like, don't be afraid to make that opportunity for yourself. Like, ask. Sometimes if you just ask, like, hey, you know, I'm not really digging this role, how about this? Sometimes they might just be like, yeah, you know what, we actually need somebody there, like, go ahead, you know. So I feel like that's my next, like, my, I guess, big advice, because I recently experienced that in my career path, trying to move to a more technical developer advocacy role, which I did. I was able to do that. So yeah. Oh yes, advocate for yourself. I like that.
Well, thanks so much, everyone, for providing ways to start a career path that y'all have chosen. Um, I'll start by, or I'll continue by asking like certain questions for everyone. I'll start off with Ellie. So I did hear a podcast that you were in, and I do have a couple of questions regarding it. So during the Boba, it's called Boba Talks, the podcast, you spoke about the challenge of self-comparison, especially given the unique journeys everyone does take in the tech field. As a woman in tech, how do you navigate this challenge? Could you share some strategies or mindsets that have helped you avoid falling into this trap of comparison in such a rapidly evolving like industry, and also like male dominated industry? So
Yeah, for sure. No, and also I'm really, I guess it's being here in front of like a lot of other, Latino women. I get to really also talk about, being also like Hispanic. So yeah, so I'm also first generation. It's something that, yeah, even with that, that's part of the comparison too, is because sometimes it feels like, like starting from zero even. Like I know that there's no engineers in my family, there isn't specifically like, people that I can like immediate people that I can sort of like talk to about, these sort of things. Yeah, the comparison is really big. I have even now, like I go to a predominantly white institution. I'm surrounded by, people in my classes that just don't really look like me. People who my professors don't look like me. This is something that I've also have, and it's what the industry looks like as well, not just in college. But yeah, I navigating this for me definitely is I my roommate taught me this when we moved in together. She said that, rejection is redirection. So this is something that I have definitely, I live by. I didn't get that internship. Um, yeah, there's a lot of failed interviews with companies that I, really would have loved to work at. But redirection, and sometimes it's like I see other close friends that are so it's a different like way that I see them learning, and they've managed to like land those like like the FANG tech internships that I've always kind of sort of looked at and have failed from. um it's really just something that I feel like is um I, I don't like, for me personally, it's like the growth that I have sort of gone through from starting from college is that, yeah, like I I'm just starting at a different, there's is there's a different like starting point, I think, is that I have a different starting point from like, my friend who got this internship. I have a different starting point from like a graduate student. Like we're all sort of starting from different levels. and it like you can't really compare, two different journeys. So that's sort of how I see it. That's sort of how I've, not being a woman, being like Latina, being first generation. It's like, there's different places that we've all started from. The comparisons just like aren't valid. You can't really compare, different experiences when it's been, different journeys. So that's sort of how I have, seen that through navigating, just the environment that I've, grown up in, uh, and just my career in general.
Awesome. Thank you. Love the quote as well that your friend mentioned. Rejection is redirection. I really love that. Especially because of how like often, like let's say also for like internships, how people get rejected pretty fast and people become easily unmotivated. Um, yeah, one last question. So last year for Frontera Devs, we hosted our first hackathon. And in the podcast, you've also mentioned that you've participated in probably over 40 hackathons now because that podcast was like a while ago. And are you still an MLH coach currently?
Yeah, so I actually I'm not an active MLH coach right now, no.
Oh, okay. I was gonna ask a question regarding the MLH coach, but also just in hackathons in general. As you were a coach, how do you think hackathons shape students and becoming better developers?
Yeah, I think they've definitely so I sort of got introduced to like the programming side of things because I went to like my first hackathon. So, hackathon really shaped for me like the way that I was like, oh, like this is something that I really wanted to keep doing. I think there's so much just like because of like the strict like either 24-hour or 36-hour depending on the hackathon, there's so much you have to learn in such like little time, um that it's not only like it's not like classroom learning where you're going through slides and you're taking tests. It's like you have to build this, like we have to figure out how to do starting from zero. It's like, you're going through the different steps of creating an app or a website or whatever it is you're building. So the learning is just like very different. And I think it's a really nice break from something like, classroom learning where you're learning um, like your typical like data structures or algorithms class, like, like here's the challenge, like, build it. So I think that's one of the biggest things that I see, like, how hackathons have shaped students and their experiences, because you get to build something you hopefully like, you get to build something that is, something that you're proud of. And yeah, I definitely see it. An MLH coach that I have met actually that I worked with. She's actually getting her PhD in hackathon research. So she's researching exactly how it is that students are like learning so much faster with, like a hackathon-esque environment. So yeah, like it's a real thing. It's definitely a real thing. So yeah, I'd say that. I'd say yeah, if you didn't do Frontera Hacks last year, definitely do that, because such an amazing experience.
All right. Thank you, Ellie, so much for that response. Now I'm going to switch over to Catherine. So I don't think a lot of people know this about you actually, but when I first talked with you during shift, you had mentioned that you actually transferred from UT Austin to UTRGV. And so I wanted you to maybe describe like why you decided to transfer from UT Austin and to UTRGV, and what insights you can share about like the transfer process and how like a new transfer student can get like right up and running right at their new school.
Yeah, that's a really great question. And I love talking about my transition. On the topic of like rejection is redirection. My journey to where I am today has definitely been like a huge roller coaster. And one of my lows was I started at UT Austin, and I had a great group of mentors at that school. But in the top of comparison, I could definitely see, because I did not have any coding background. I had absolutely no STEM background whatsoever. So I could tell I was kind of a little bit more behind than my peers starting out. And I was able to do as much as I can, and I really had to, outreach for help and extra guidance. And I also was paying for myself, so I was working on the side as well. So I was not doing well, and I started to associate that I wasn't doing well in my courses with I'm never going to be an engineer, or I'm engineering is too hard. I'm not good enough to be an engineer. I'm just like, I used to think like, man, I'm just so dumb. Like there's no way I can be an engineer at this rate. And I realized that I just wasn't getting the proper resources that for my learning style and for my growth development, my career development, I was not receiving that at a larger university. And so decided to transfer to UTRGV, which I was born and raised in McAllen. So it was like going back home, and I had a lot of friends at UT Austin who told me like, don't give up. Like engineering is for everyone. Like don't put yourself in a box just because you don't look, you don't look like most of the engineers here in our classes. You don't act like most of the engineers in our classes. That doesn't mean you can't be an engineer. And so I'm so happy that they gave me that advice, and I'm happy that I stuck with it. Because when I went to transfer, I went to my advisor at UT Austin, and my advisor told me like, it's because engineering's not for you. So I think maybe you should think about communications. You seem like a person who would do really well in communications. And I just remember being in the office and just starting to cry in front of her. I'm not embarrassed to cry in public. So I was just like crying in front of her and thinking that my whole entire life I wanted to be a computer engineer, and it felt like my whole world was just like in shambles. I ended up still doing it anyway, transferring to UTRGV, and I just met the most incredible people at UTRGV. My first professor, Dr. Chu, was just so supportive. And what really helped me start and running, a lot of classes do transfer because we're still in the UT system. So a lot of my classes still transferred. But I did go to summer classes, and I reached out for professor mentorship. I started seeking out study groups within UTRGV, going to SHIP. I wish I joined Frontera Devs when I was at UTRGV. So things like reaching out, building community, it was just so much more special to me, especially since a lot of people were in the same boat as me, looked like me. It made me feel a lot more confident to continue going through this career path and not having that like imposter syndrome. I hate the term imposter syndrome, but that's kind of how it feels like in the beginning. So that was my transfer story. And I was so happy that I did, because I was able to get that sort of extra attention. And also the classes are spread out a little bit differently at UTRGV compared to UT Austin. It was easier for me to learn. And everybody has their own way that they learn, their own way of studying. So you do whatever works for you. And I think it's really important to give yourself grace as you're finding out what that looks like for you. Because it's definitely not going to look like everybody else's. So try to find that for you, because investing in yourself is the best thing you can do when you're in a tech company, in a tech role, and a tech journey, because we are so small of a community. We're like, especially Latina women, like, and when I started my first job, I was the only Hispanic person out of 100 people of a team. I was the only woman within that 100-person team. So that was technical. So it can be very hard. So if you just give yourself that grace and understand how you learn and how you can study, and I think you'll have a very successful career. And so I love UTRGV. I always tell people that, like, I don't even like to tell people that I go to UT Austin. Like, I went to UT Austin for a couple of years and then finished off at UTRGV, because I'm just like, I have so much pride to be graduating from UTRGV, and I meet so many students who are just so amazing, so talented, have just amazing potential. And I just want to give this quick story. I know this is a super long answer to like a short question, but I have been invited 3 times to go to the United Nations for Hispanic Leadership Summit, which is a summit that brings executives who are Hispanic from all over the country to the United Nations and talk about issues and solutions. And when I first went, it was about 50 people and there was nobody from the Valley. The second time I went, it was a little bit more people and I still didn't see Valley representation. And last year I went and there was 3 women who were from the Valley that were on the panels. And there was a Hispanic executive from IBM that was sitting next to me and he was like, hey, like they should do a study on like the Rio Grande Valley, because how are all these people being so successful, like coming from the Rio Grande Valley? And I was like, because we're amazing. Like we are seriously awesome. And I just feel so proud of like our community, that school, the programs, everything. So yeah, just wanted to give that tidbit.
Thank you so much for that response, Catherine. So we'll hand the floor to Stephany now. So first question I want to ask is, so being the founder for Frontera Devs, so what inspired you to create the club with the mission to equip like developers like with resources and the support they need to achieve their like full potential in professional careers, and like how like other people can like pursue like their own kind of passions, right?
I remember at the time when I was like a freshman in like school, that I didn't know what internships were, didn't know like what it is that I wanted to do as a career. I just knew that I really liked coding and that I wanted my job to involve that in some way or shape or form. And then I had my first internship and I was in San Francisco, which where I live now. And I remember seeing like 4-year-olds coding with like their parents, and then like the public libraries offering like mommy and me like classes to learn how to code. Like it was just very much embedded into their school system in a way that it was never involved in mine, because I grew up in like Mission, Texas, where there's like no STEM program, and Mission like CISD was like super under-resourced. So I didn't go to a STEM school, didn't have like a coding class officially until I was like a senior in high school. And then all of a sudden to be put into a city where STEM and tech is just so integrated into their lifestyles was extremely shocking, but like in a positive way. And I remember thinking like when I went back home after that internship, was like, oh, that really sucks. Like their community is so rich of people who really love and value how important tech is. And I wish that we had that in the Valley, because it is so important. Not just, you know, like opportunity wise, but I think like inclusive wise, like there's so many people that are so bright in the Valley that like really just need a little bit of direction and like can really nail like these opportunities. Like the amount of dumb people I've worked with is insane. And like the amount of like people that are like so brilliant and so smart, like in my classes and my peers are just so intelligent, but they just need to know about like these opportunities that they just may have not heard before. And I remember like thinking about like myself at the time a year ago, was like, I didn't know what internships were. What if I just told people what they are? What if I just told people, and like all of my closest friends, and Kat is a victim of me telling her like, Kat, like you have to know what internships are. Like they're just so cool and they're so important. You can get paid to do this. And I remember just telling like my closest friends, I was like, we should do this. We should all get internships together. And I did, like all of my friends, like Kat was one of like my closest friends at the time, and she still is, and it was like we can just do this together and we can really be a part of like of tech, and we can go out and get paid and like and leave here, but also like not forget that this community in the Valley is so important. And to not, I hate when people leave, you know, like UTRGV and then just like forget that the part of the culture that they you know, consume their life. And so I knew that it was really important to me to create some type of org or a club or community where people can just kind of learn from each other. And I knew that I wanted that to be centered around Hispanic culture and Valley culture specifically, because I think that there are some like Hispanics in tech, but it's like people from Colombia or from Puerto Rico, and it's like it's not the same. Like the Valley is just such a beautiful community near the border, near the Frontera, and I knew that like it had to be centered around this. And it just really made sense. And so like at the time I was like broke, and I was like, okay, like I can just print out flyers at like the library, and I can just like force my sister with pizza to like put this shit all over the engineering building and all over the CS building, and we'll figure it out. And then just like slowly, like time over time, I just kind of like kept telling people like these are internships, these are like things you could learn, these are what APIs are, these are like all the fun things that you could be doing. And then seeing that kind of like grow in fruition, and people kind of to like started to like grow in a ripple effect almost, right? So like I told Kat, and then Kat told other people, and then I somehow coerced Cass, and then Cass told other people, and then here we are where Frontera Devs is like 500 people large, and a lot of people, started their freshman year with me, and then now they're alumni and they work in tech, and they can kind of come back and share their stories and share that other students will work for them. So I think in summary, I started Frontera Devs because I knew how important it was for people in the Valley to have the opportunities that they deserve, that they just need a little bit of guidance to. And then I think for tech as a whole, I think the whole tech industry really deserves these bright, sharp, intelligent people that are in the Valley. And they have just been hiding, just little gems all along. So yeah, that's how Frontera Devs was born. It's probably like $20, Little Caesars. And now here we are.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, it's definitely important to remember like where you come from. I've seen like my sister's coworkers, like some of them have studied here and now she's in Austin, and they never even like bring up where they studied from, which is like UTRGV and stuff like that. So it's awesome that you created this club where it's growing pretty fast, and it's awesome the community that you've created, and everyone being able to talk to each other. Yeah, thank you so much. I have a question for Belinda. Um, so currently you're working in SHIP as a tutor for data structures and algorithms. You've mentioned to me how the tutors are all women as well. What does it mean to inspire and encourage others in the tech field, helping students in one, if not the hardest course in CS, which is data structures?
Oh, okay, yes. So just to expand on that, yes, all the program that I work for, it's kind of like a pilot program, and it's sponsored by Reboot Representation, and of course also through SHIP, and then we do the tutoring on this startup tutoring platform named Papaya. And yes, all the tutoras are women, and there's an emphasis on that because um that decision was made meticulously to try to change the stigma against women in tech. Because a lot of the times women are seen as like, oh, they don't know what they're talking about, in like a room full of like men, like, oh, like, don't listen to the woman. She doesn't know what she's talking about. There's that stigma. And even though there's more diversity in the industry now than there was um, a couple decades ago, there still continues to be that prejudice and that bias against women in tech. So the point of the tutoras tutoring one of the hardest courses in the computer science curriculum is to help change that narrative, and show that women are capable and strong and smart, and if they did it, you can do it as well, and they can help you achieve what it is that you want to achieve. So that was the point of all the tutoras being women in the program. And I align with that message so hardly, because I remember when I first started out doing my computer science degree, it was so bizarre to me to walk into a room, into like computer science 1, and be like, wow, I'm like the only girl in here. There's only one other girl in the back, and then all the rest of the seat are just filled by guys, and it would make me feel so nervous, make me feel like I couldn't ask any questions. I didn't want to look dumb or anything. So that sentiment of trying to empower women in tech just aligns with me so much, that mission. And yeah, so that's kind of why all the tutoras are women, to help change the narrative that women are capable, even more so that they're tutoring you in the subject, that you need help in. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Belinda. Definitely creating an impact. I
Oh, I'm so
remember.
sorry.
Oh,
Yeah.
hello?
Oh yes, creating an effect. Mhm.
Yes. I remember I met Belinda back in CS2. She's like one of the brightest people I know. So she helped me with like CS2, data structures. Definitely helps inspire everyone around her.
Oh, and also, to expand on it, I know I didn't quite catch the first question, so I never really
Oh.
expanded on why I'm here or how I got the position where I am. When I first came in, I didn't know anyone in college, or in university, and I kind of went up to my professor because he made me feel comfortable pursuing my computer science degree, and I kind of asked him, I was like, "Is there any way I could be involved at school? Are there any clubs?" And he didn't know of any, but he told me to talk to Dr. Tamai, the department chair. And little freshman me, I was like, okay, I'm gonna go talk to Dr. Tamai. So I marched up to the third floor, and I was like, hey, are there any computer science clubs? And he told me about Frontera Devs. He was like, oh yeah, you should check them out. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, for sure. So then I went and I attended the first general meeting, and that was when Stephany was still, organization lead. And I went and I asked a bunch of questions, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna fill out a lead application. That seems like a cool organization that I can get behind, a cool community that I can get involved with. And so I did. And then I was a lead for a semester. And then after that, I became a co-organization lead along with Cass. And I was co-organization lead for like a year and a half. So for around like 3 semesters, and it was so much fun. And then in that same time frame, I also went and I asked about like a TA job, and I got it for CS2. And because I was always bringing in so many students from CS2, Dr. Tamai recommended me to be in the position where I am today. And I got hired on the spot, no interview needed. And yeah, so just to wrap it up, comparison is the thief of joy, and everyone's on their own journey. And you need to go and just try your hardest and look for any opportunity that like calls to you. And if you feel like you're right for something, just go for it. The worst that you can face is someone being like, oh no, you can't do this. But you never know where it'll take you. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Belinda. Lastly, we have Catalina. I have a question. So in the beginning with the introduction, you mentioned a bit of being a developer advocate. Can you explain what that is, and also what strategies you employ to bridge the gap between developers and the products or services you represent?
Yes, so I guess explaining what a developer advocate is a little confusing depending on where you work and I guess what your project is for that quarter or for that year or for the entire time you're there. So in general, like a developer advocate, what it means is, or what they do usually is that they do bridge like they bridge the path between the developer community and or even like the developer community within the company to to the company's technologies, to the API and all this other stuff, right? This could range between doing courses or tutorials and posting on YouTube, or making podcasts talking about the tool, or being active on the developer forum, which most tech companies have a developer forum, a developer community, where developers can post questions and you can answer these questions, which that is a little bit of the responsibility that I do when I have time. Or it could be I don't know. It could range between a lot of different things. So I guess what I do specifically in Zoom is I work with the marketplace team, um, which a lot of people don't know that Zoom has a marketplace team. So if y'all look literally like at the bottom of the Zoom client, there's a thing that says apps. And if you open that on the side, like a bunch of little apps will pop up, like AI meeting assistant, Kahoot, Coda, all this other stuff. So all of these apps, they come in and they're integrations basically. And I take care of reviewing them, making sure that they meet our standards and making sure that the way that they're using our endpoints, our API endpoints is in the correct way and they're not violating anything, especially since this is like a huge communication thing where a lot of things could go wrong. It's used in healthcare, in government, right, in school, education, all this other stuff. So there's a lot of things that we have to make sure that they're being used correctly in a UI perspective, as also in a technical perspective. So that is something that I do, and the way I communicate with developers is just either through meetings if necessary. I don't always have to be meeting with them if they understand what I'm saying. But most of the time, it's usually a back and forth through either email or through the application that they're submitting. I make comments or I send screenshots, hey, this doesn't look right, type of thing. And also there's been times where they send me a question and I'm like, wow, honestly, I have no idea. Let me actually go check with my engineering team because I didn't even know we had that. So yes, I'm supposed to be an expert, but time to time, like there's times that they come at me with something that I didn't even know we had. So that is something that I find really fun when I have to investigate our own API and see how it works. And then once I am knowledgeable in that, I am able to, review that part or give them proper feedback and see how we can get working with them. So, yeah, basically it's more back end. I guess I don't really do a lot of tutorials or other stuff like that, but I do interact more closely with developers or teams, PMs from other companies, from third-party companies to work with the Zoom API. Also, when it comes to API monitoring, I do not contact too many developers, but something that I do, which is something that it's backwards. So I bridge the gap between the Zoom API and the Zoom developer. So sometimes there's times where things go wrong, not because somebody did it wrong or a third party, hey, like they're trying to do something bad with Zoom or something like that. It's just that our API didn't cover that specific use case, or they're sending a 200 when they should have been sending a 400, even though it's empty, type of thing. So we talk to our engineers and we show them like the issues and stuff and all the instances and occurrences that have happened because of that small issue, right? And we try to work with the PMs just to try to figure out how to solve that issue. So not only do we help, I guess, help understand the API from third parties, as we also help internal teams better the API, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So, and I think there was a second part to that question, or I think I did cover all of that, I want to say, because you also talked about how, like, what do I do to bridge that gap, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
See, if you want, I could repeat it, but you covered a lot. Yeah, it can if you
Okay.
want. It's just that we're running out of time. I don't want to take up
Oh
everyone's
yeah, no,
time. So
I'm done answering the question. Yeah.
yes, yeah. Thanks so much.
Okay, so we're gonna finally open the floor to Q&A from the audience. I guess you can post in chat any questions you may have, or can unmute their mic as well as that. But you can ask any of the panelists like on here any specific questions you might have. So yeah, like right now is like the audience's time to ask the panelists any questions you might have. Okay, so well.
If there's no questions, it has been roughly an hour, and I don't want to take up like more time from y'all. But yeah, we'll give it a couple more seconds. But
Yeah, and if like the other panelists can also like share their LinkedIn too. So you know, free promotion. Any social medias you want to promote, you can post them in chat. But
Yeah, I want to mention really quick. So my company, we're based in New York. And if you are a like a May graduate, we're looking for interns potentially. So stay connected with me. You can add me on LinkedIn. You can check out our we're a learn to code platform. So yeah, you can check it out if there's we're gonna be on the GitHub student developer pack in March. So super exciting. But yeah, so we're looking for potential like full-timers and internships. So yeah, just wanted to put that out there.
awesome. Thank you so much.
I'm gonna add to that. That's
Yep.
a great idea, Ellie. So I'm gonna follow you. So if you do not have an internship this summer, because we're in February, I think. Yes. If you do not have an internship this summer, we at IBM have something called the IBM Accelerate program, which is technically kind of like an internship, but it's more of an education platform. So this is where you can meet other IBMers and do a project with them, and they'll teach you what they do. And it's just a great networking opportunity as well. And I want to mention, like, your network is your net worth. So I definitely want to say take advantage of this program if you can apply. So I put it in the chat, but if you have any questions, I also have my LinkedIn on there. You could send me a message.
okay, and for any members in the audience, please scan this QR code if you're interested in getting more involved with Frontera Devs. We're going to be having some more workshops throughout the semester. We'll be having our next workshop is going to be on mental wellness. So definitely follow the Discord to get more information about that. But I want to thank all of the panelists here for their time because you know they took time out of their very busy schedule to be part of this panel. And so give yourselves a round of applause for your excellent contributions. Anything you want to say, Jerry?
Thank you so much. It was amazing having you and talk about insights, getting tips, experience. Thank you so much, everyone. If there's no more questions, we could end it off here.
Okay. Well, thank you all from Frontera Devs, and enjoy the rest of your afternoon. All right. Well, bye everyone.
Bye.
Bye.